SObjects. All objects, account, contact, case, etc. you interact with are all extensions of SObjects, which we'll go into extensions and inheritance later on. But essentially, they all have the same methods and all act within the same way. We're going to be focusing on just the account and the contact SObjects. In Apex, to create new objects, new SObjects, they first need to be instantiated. They need to be created with the word new. So let's say if you wanted to create a new account in Apex. So we'll go into that. We'll delete this. So I just want an account. Call it act for now. So new account. And then if I just debug to print, I can see right here within the debug, it shows account and then colon and then the curly braces. So the curly braces right here, that's going to denote that's an object. And then now we can add some values to this account. So we can do account.name. And so the name, that's coming from the fields that are actually in the SObject itself. So in the account SObject, you can reference the name just like I'm doing right now, or account name. And name, it's a string value. And so that one, we're going to make it a string for, let's say, 23rd Street Burgers. And now we'll just add the address. So in the API, there is two different addresses within the account. There's the shipping address, and then there's the billing address. So we'll just put in the shipping address. So 123 23rd Street. And then we'll do shipping city. I'll say we're in New York City. And then the shipping, we need the state. State. New York. And then the account for shipping, or the postal code. And if I debug this again, okay, so here we can see the empty account because we just created it. We instantiated it without adding anything in it. And then now we added, so we have the account SObject, and then we added a name, shipping street, shipping city. We added all those values in. All of them just happen to be strings, but there could be, when you create a new field, there's the currency and other data types as well that there are. So then as we can see here, we see the key value pairs. So when we go through maps, we'll go more through key value pairs as well. But we can see that the name, which is here, .name, is equal to 23rd Street Burgers, shipping street, 123 23rd Street, and so on. Now then I can also instantiate the account with those values already in there. Let's just say, what do I want? I want the, we can just use the same variable. So new account. So instead of going through instantiating the account and then line by line going in and saying what the values are for each of these different fields, I can just do name equals and 23rd Street Burgers. Shipping Street. One, two, three. 23rd Street. Shipping City. New York City. And you get the idea for the rest of them. And then if I want to debug. Okay. So notice in here when I'm creating that new account with the values already in, I'm using the field name, which for this one it's name, and then equals, and then the value. And then I'm using the comma to separate it, and then having a new field equals, or not a new field, but the new field within the SObject, and then the value. So I'm putting in the values for each of them, and I'm using the comma as a separator instead of semicolon or anything else. That's just the syntax for creating a new account and already instantiating values into it. So as I can see here, when I debug it, I get the same thing where I see it's an account, I get the name, the value, shipping street, the value, shipping city, value. Now since I have those values in the SObject, I can also get those values. So if I went to system debug, and then account.name, I can get the name. Let's just use the same one. We'll do shipping street. So then if I'm running through any code and I need to get a specific value from an SObject, I can get that straight from the field. As you can see here, the debug. So the shipping street is 123 23rd Street, and then the name, 23rd Street Burgers. Now to go back to the beginning of what I was saying, where the account is an extension of an SObject, which means that I can use an SObject data type to represent the account as well. So right now I'm stating that this is an account. I can use the SObject and do the same thing. So we'll just call it reference SObject. So new account. And then we'll just take all this right here. And then debug. So as I can see right here, in the SObject, I can see that I have the account and then those values as well. One catch is, since the type value that I have right now is SObject, that means that even though it says account when I debug it, this new account is an SObject. So if I were to try, let's say I have a new variable that I'm having be typed as account, and I want to have that be the SObject as well. When I run this, you'll see that I get an error. Illegal assignment from SObject to account. That's saying that this SObject is an account. This account, because it's an extension of the SObject, can go into the SObject type. However, the sObject cannot traverse backwards and go into the account. What you can do is you can use casting. Casting, we will go into more in detail later on as well. But just to give you a glimpse of this, we have this sObject. We can cast it so that way it is the account type and it will run. See, we didn't get an error. And I can just debug test. And I can see right here, debug the account, and it's the account and all the values. Since an account is an sObject, it also inherits all the sObject class methods as well, which is what we've kind of been talking about. And a few of them that I'm going to be going through is one that is helpful when you have an sObject or a group of sObjects and you're trying to figure out what types are these. You can use the get sObject type. So if I were to where is that? So if I were to use the test variable account, and then there's a get sObject type. We'll comment out this debug. Run it. Oh. Run all of this. I can see that it is the account type. So that way, if you have any logic within your code for based on the sObject type, if it's an account or if it's a contact, if it's some other sObject, go down and run this set of code compared to a different set of code based on the type values. And then another one that you can do is that we were referencing the field directly. You could also use get and then the name of the field. So let's say we wanted the shipping city. I can get the shipping city. We got New York City. And then something else that we can do as well is, let's say based on that logic, we wanted to present an error or have an error if something happened where, based on the logic, we just wanted to add an error and get a message. I can do test.addError. Test is, again, the variable. And then just the message of the error. You encountered an error. And once we add that error, there's a different method for getting errors that are associated to that sObject. So I can get errors. And it ran successfully. So I ran the add error, and then when I debug it, I see a debug of database.error, get fields, and then get message. So the message for the error is you encountered an error. And then there's a get status code, which is a field custom validation exception. So this is returning the return type for the get errors is not just the message. It is a list of database error, which we haven't been talking too much in regards to the documentation return values. So I just brought up the documentation return value. which we can see right here, is a list database error. The database error, then I can take a look into the database error as well. So just kind of showing a little bit of traversing through the documentation, and we can see the different methods that you have within this error class as well. And then the namespace being database, which is why it's a database.error. And in a couple of videos from now, we'll be going into lists and how to work with lists, so that way you'll have a better understanding of how we can work with this list of the database error and kind of go through all those. And I'll see you in the next video.